Good evening. I've just got something I've got to do here. I don't need this here anymore. Take that out. Okay. This is a further video on my progress with the 1906 lime hand shaper, bench hand shaper, and I've now turned the block around to do the third T-slot, and one of the things I found in doing this was that when I did the first two T-slots, I had these clamps done up pretty tight because I was a bit concerned about this moving. And after undoing the clamps and turning the block around and reclamping, but only just nipping because I had to run a dial indicator along this surface here to square everything up again, I found that the movement of the x-axis was much smoother and easier. So I've come to the conclusion that the table was actually getting distorted by my tightening these clamps up, especially when they're way out at each end of the length of the table. So I learnt a valuable lesson there. Since I've re-clamped it, I certainly haven't clamped it up as tight, and what I've done is I've put two blocks, these are clamps that I had available, and so I put a T-nut in there, and I've clamped these clamps on the same plastic material, the vinyl, that I've got underneath now, and I put vinyl at each end so that it doesn't do any damage to the table, and I've clamped this up tight right up against this face, and I've also got another one at this face, so at least the block is kind of held in nicely, snugly in place, and I hope that that's going to solve the problem. Now I've started my third slot, and I've got 2-inch centers on each one. I'm using a roughing end mill, and I didn't know exactly, like I'm really worried about this column moving if I use too much force in the cutting pressure when I'm cutting with an end mill, and so I decided that I'd just take a 200 thou cut. I have to go down to 540 eventually, but I thought, well, 200 is not a bad cut. 200 in depth is not a bad cut. I think I could probably go to 300, but I don't want to push my luck too much. So I'm continuing on to a 7-inch length at 0.2 depth. So I just thought I'd mention that, and I'll do some cutting now, and you can see how it goes. I've got this drip feed. It's not that great, but it does help. and I have to get that going first before. In the meantime, I've got this. This is what dripped off the table with the other two slots. So I've got some juice in there, and I'm going to rely on the brush and the drip. So we'll start cutting. So as you can see, it's kind of going pretty good. And I put it all down to just the fact that instead of having that silly little V-belt and the little pulleys, that this has made all the difference. Completely. Yeah, see, it's not dripping. That's the trouble, I can't get it. It's not, the tubing is not long enough to get onto the, but at least it's helping, I think. Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds nice. It sounds like it's cutting well. So maybe I'll go 3 the next drop down. It's going quite well. So, beware if you're holding a large piece of metal or steel on your milling table and certainly on the trade, be careful how much you tighten up the clamps because it does distort. I think I've got it running at about 500 RPM. If you have it running too fast and you don't feed on manually, you start losing chips, and the chips get smaller and they come off a little bit like dust. So I mean, all of my machining for the last, I guess 40 years, let's see, 80, 60, 20, yeah, about 45 years, I have never calculated out speed and feed. I'm not saying that that's a smart thing to do, but for this is not a production job, so it really doesn't matter. It's going nicely. Now it's not dripping, see? Come on! See if I can, how have I got that clamped? Yeah, see if I can get it further forward. Yeah, bits and pieces. There we go. Let's see if that works. That's getting down there. I lost one of my micro what you call them, US memories. One of these little mini micro USBs, or memory stick, memory card. I've lost it, and it's got about 23 of my videos downloaded on it. So I'm kind of upset about that. I should have downloaded it on the computer, but I thought, well, it's on YouTube, so I'm hoping that maybe there's some way that I might be able to copy them off the YouTube and download them onto a new micro card. They're so small, and they don't fit in the adapter very tightly. They're quite loose. This will probably take me half hour or maybe even 45 minutes on a cut. I just don't want to push it. I think maybe I'll put another I think I'll put another T-nut and another little clamp to push up against that block that I have at each end, just to ensure that it doesn't swivel round, but it's only on one T-slot. So I think that's something I'll do when I get to the end here, before I put another cut on. As you can see, I've got some nice chips there, so the cutter is doing its job, and that will help to keep the cutter sharp. Once the cutter starts rubbing, then it starts taking the edge off. But when it's digging in and taking a chip, it's a better way of milling. I started in the profession when I was about 24. I worked for a couple of brothers that worked in a custom shop in London, and I'm what you could say is, I guess, self-taught. We did lots of jigs and fixtures and flexible couplings for the Burma Oil Company at that time. Amongst other things, we also skimmed 40 or 60 thou off of mini cylinder heads. At that time the mini had just come out, and lots of people were with their own minis were trying to soup them up a bit, give them a bit more compression, and so we had a jig on a shaper, 14 inch I think it was, no, it might have been an 18 inch shape. We had two of them, and people used to bring their heads in, and we'd shave, I think it was 60 thou off the cylinder head. But anyway, I then moved out of London up to Cornwall, southwest of England, and worked for an American company there where we produced progression dies for thermostatic controls. Quite some nice work. The dies, we worked from anything from blanking beryllium copper or 10 thou thick. So the dies were pretty nicely made. We did dies that were designed, they called them Italian dies, where the stripper was actually, the die would have clearance and the stripper would be like a die, and it had springs on top of the bolster, like for blanking and forming, and that was pretty nice work. I learnt a lot there from old boys that had been in the business for many years, and there was about 30 of us in the tool room, so it was a pretty big tool room, and we had Jones and Shipman 540 grinders, tool room grinders, and Myford centre grinders, CAV lathes and Bridgeport mills and stuff like that, and we did lots of moulding as well. So then I went to, I emigrated to Canada and worked for a company that produced modular ceilings, beautiful stuff, and I was there for about 5 years, and then I finally finished up in the Manitoba Cancer Treatment Research Foundation in Winnipeg, and worked with Acieras, Famcos, Hardinge lathes, Harrison lathes, Cardiff lathes, all tiled floor and white coats, and that was really nice, beautiful equipment and very interesting work, which was part of the physics department, and we were classified as the medical devices. So we made anything that doctors or physicists required, like projects. They got grants and they needed stuff built, and so that's the kind of work that I wound up with. And it wasn't until I was about let's see, I got my certificate up here. It was where are we? October '86. I was more or less forced to do my apprenticeship exams, and I went in one Friday afternoon in Winnipeg and did the the written, and I passed that, and then the next stage was